Here we are, folks. We made it all the way to the end of the alphabet, the letter Z. Now, it's not easy to find albums that start with certain letters of the alphabet, and Z was kind of difficult, but kind of not. I was able to hone in on an album that I am not familiar with. I wasn't familiar with when I went into the episode, but it's from a legendary band. It's from somebody that we know, somebody that we love, and a band that really, I think, shaped the world of punk rock in a ton of different ways. You're listening to P is for Punk, and today's Z is for Zen Arcade. All the way from 1984, Hüsker Dü has released Zen Arcade, an album that is pretty gosh darn long. An hour and 10 minutes, which is quite a lot of music, and it's kind of an interesting journey as you go through these tracks and as you go through it from front to back. 23 songs, hour and 10 minutes long. Of course, it's got Greg Norton. We've talked to him a little bit about his latest band, Ultra Bomb. That was a lot of fun. That was exciting. Hüsker Dü is definitely a household name in the world of punk rock, and they can't be ignored. We got to talk about it. I'll be honest, this took me a couple of times to listen to it for me to kind of like start to dig it a little bit. It's one of those records where it starts pretty strong and then it gets a little funky, it gets a little weird, and I'm like, what is going on? And if you're just like casually listening to it, you might get thrown off a little bit. But once I like really sat down and kind of like listened to it, I was like, all right, I kind of like this. This is interesting. And really there's a ton to talk about. But this is, I think, really an important punk album. A lot of people out there in the world of the internet say that this is one of the best punk rock albums to ever be put out. Do I agree with that? I don't know. I'd probably have to listen to it for another like 8 years, 10 years before I could really make that call or that determination. But yeah, man, this is an interesting record for sure. So let's kind of dive into it a little bit. It's a wild ride. So it opens up with a song called Something I Learned Today. You got this drum roll launching into the record. It's fast. It's kind of got this melodic hardcore aspect to it. Bob Mould's kind of buzzing guitar noise on there. And you can really enjoy it. It's kind of got that standard punk sound from the 80s, which at the time it probably wasn't a standard punk sound, but when you grow up with it through the decades, it does become something known that you hear in the 80s. The lyrics kind of go through the rules of society that you are expected to follow. And they're saying, no, I'm not going to. Something I learned today was this. They're not going to do that. It's kind of not going with society, not going with the grain. You're going against the grain. Just because you're told to do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And, you know, you could argue you're fighting conformity and you're fighting the norms, which, you know, that's punk rock mentality, that punk rock lifestyle. And it kind of sets up a little bit of some of the themes about rejecting expectations that you see in this record. I like this song. It was a good way to enter the album with that drum roll and having that attitude of like, yeah, dude, you tell me all the things you want me to do. I'm not going to do it. You know, kind of reminds me of my 4-year-old at times. You tell him to do something. He's like, no. He does it for different reasons though. You know, when you're older and you can think about things, it's a little different when you say no, or you're not going to do that because you don't need to conform to the rules. But a good way to kick off the record. Followed up by Broken Home, Broken Heart. You have some really kind of sped up musically. It's got this awesome bass line. Greg Norton really throwing it down on this one, and he's got some tasty bass licks going on throughout every single song. on this record. Super talented. You have this frantic drumming, but it's not sloppy. It's like, it's planned franticness, if that really kind of makes sense, which is a lot of fun. You have a little bit of an angrier vocal tone with the singer. There's not a lot of lyrics in these songs. And a lot of these songs across the records, like, it's really like, I would call it just like a one pager, a couple of paragraphs, or a couple of little stanzas or whatever. It's not like a super intricate, long, detailed song that's telling a long-winded story. Like, these lyrics are pretty short. They get repetitive in certain areas of the songs, but they're constructed in a way that it's still impactful and it's still meaningful. And a lot of these songs are relatively short too. So they don't give themselves a ton of time to just pack in a novel into the song. But Broken Home, Broken Heart, talking a little bit about a dysfunctional upbringing, and it could be about somebody maybe who just kind of carries anger everywhere they go. And we all know that person. We maybe have been that person at some times in our lives where we're angry at the world, we're angry at our family, just everything pisses us off. And over time, if you are in that constant state of anger, you can get that. And unfortunately, a lot of broken homes have that. This is definitely a more emotionally kind of raw, hardcore song on this record. And it's coming in at the second one. And then they completely switch it up and change it with the third song, Never Talking to You Again. And it's got like, it's acoustic guitar. It gives me this vocal vibe or folkish kind of vibe. It gives me, I don't know, like, I think of like a little bit of like a Celtic rock kind of sensibility to it, just based on stuff that I've heard, of course. Maybe that was new at the time. It's kind of like a little one-liner followed by the hook of Never Talking to You Again. Your lyrics are pretty straightforward. It was cool because you have like these hardcore openers on it, and then it just goes to this folk acoustic guitar song, and it just shows that Hüsker Dü ain't afraid to switch it up. They're no one-trick pony, which is always nice to see in a band. And they're talking about cutting someone out of your life. You got to do it every once in a while. It doesn't matter how long you know somebody. If somebody sucks and they're making you feel bad about yourself and they're impacting your life in a negative way, get them out. I think this kind of shift, though, in sound in 1984 was probably pretty unusual. And even to this day, like 2026, when I'm listening to it, it threw me off, which I thought was pretty cool and pretty like inventive. You get that now, I think, more often, but in the 80s, you know, when I'm thinking about, you know, like the Descendants, you're thinking about the Clash, you're thinking about all these other kind of bands. They didn't really like just completely switch it up 3 songs in, which it's kind of cool that they did that. But yeah, a very straightforward song, but also a really good one. I enjoyed Never Talking to You Again. Moves into Chartered Trips. It's kind of back to that punk rock formula, a little slower. It kind of gave me the Dickies vibe a little bit. I do enjoy a Dickies song from here to there, and it kind of reminded me of that in the vocal execution. Now, you know, I'm not saying they were influenced by the Dickies, or the Dickies might have been influenced by them. I'm sure they were. That's what I think of when I hear those kind of sounds, and it is kind of unique, I thought. And the same thing with like the guitar sounds. It has this like little birds influence a little bit, if you will. Has it's not shouting in the vocals. It's sing-songy, kind of a little more dreamy, I guess, if you want to say that. Talking about escaping reality. I think the meaning is kind of ambiguous. There's some like, it's got like this psychedelic kind of feel. So I don't know if there's some like references really to drugs or some allusions to drugs. So when you talk about like a chartered trip, it could be you're getting on a boat, you're going on a cruise, or you're doing drugs and you're tripping, which up for interpretation, up for the listener to make that determination, I suppose, which would be very artistic of Hüsker Dü. And I think they were artistic people, and they might have done that on purpose. We then get a song called Dreams Reoccurring, and it is just it's the staticky, distorted, chaotic instrumental song. It's like switching frequencies on the radio kind of vibes. It's funky. It's like feedback from guitars. It's just like you're going in and out of consciousness, and it's kind of weird. I guess this is like a beginning of a motif that we'll revisit later in the record of this kind of dream. It's weird. And again, it's like kind of like catches you off guard. So you get these hardcore punk songs, you got the one acoustic song, and now you got this instrumental that's like trippy and psychedelic, and it kind of, I guess, feeds off the previous song, Charter Trips, which could be, again, like I said, alluding to drugs of some sorts. I don't know, but it's definitely experimental and definitely kind of funky, kind of weird. Next song is called Indecision Time. It is a fast song, maybe one of the faster ones on the record. It has the start and stop riffs, has a kind of like a chaotic guitar when it's there. This one reminded me a little bit of the Circle Jerks. So I'm getting like a lot of like influences here from Hüsker. Hüsker Dü is giving to the world a lot of influences out there, and probably taking in some influences too. But you have these yelling kind of vocals talking about overthinking while life is moving. You have, you're just in this like just, I guess, like this weird state of mind where you just can't focus on what's in front of you. You can't focus on what's going on. You're overthinking, but the world is still turning, and indecision can be a real killer at times. But a good kind of song, and it continues this like theme of whatever that may be. I don't know. Talking on my ass, I think, probably. Let's move on. The next song is called Hair Krishna, which is loud. It's disheveled. It's monotone cadence of like this lyric repeating the same thing over and over. It's kind of like a cult. That's kind of like the vibe that I got. And like Hair Krishna, and then it goes to Hair Rama. Just repeats the same thing over and over again with this weird hypnotic type of tone to it. And I think it's kind of a questioning of religion, kind of, and it's just a weird song to say the least. It's strange, it's different, it's unique, and it gets people talking. Again, it doesn't fit the mold of what you have previously heard. And when you're listening to this for the first time, you're like, what the hell is going on here with all these instrumentals? Or like these instrumental kind of funky experimental type of vibes. It's just weird. Once you listen to the whole thing, it looks better as a whole picture. But as a first time listener going through it, I was like, this is disorganized and disheveled. But then, of course, later, and we'll talk about it, my opinion of that does shift. A funky song, for sure. Here at Krishna. Beyond the Threshold. It has some sped up guitar. It has this monotone kind of spoken word delivery before just going off, before the singing of the lyrics comes in, and then they shout beyond the threshold. So you have like the singing lyrics, the spoken word, and then in your face, beyond the threshold. It's again, it kind of sounds like this like horror movie culty vibes again, feeding off of that a little bit. Lyrically, might be talking about going from one reality or state of mind to another through drugs, through whatever it is, beliefs, interactions with people. I'm not really sure, but it's so funky. It's just weird. And you have this screaming at the end, and it just kind of leaves you unsettled in a way. Unique for sure. Up next is a song called Pride, very in your face music that pauses after the singer says, why does everyone have to be like that? Could be like talking about falling outs with your friends, a falling out with your family. It has these abrupt pauses, which make the lyrics hit a little bit harder. Destroyed relationships. It happens. Nobody will admit they're wrong because they have too much pride. The person that's writing the song too probably is guilty of that. It's it's a pretty universal theme, minus a couple of lines in the song, but we all have those experiences where you're not going to admit you're wrong, they're not going to admit they're wrong, and you're left with no longer being a friend or associating with a family member. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Pride is a interesting thing to have to deal with. And it's important, I think, that you don't have too much of it, because then you just kind of turn into an asshole. That's my opinion on the matter, though. And I think that kind of falls in line with this song, too. I'll Never Forget You is coming up next. Another great, melodic, awesome little bass lick to bring you in with the full band. It's a short song. Again, not a lot of lyrics in this one. It's not very long. Opening up to someone, they're talking about being disrespected somehow, and that the person then never forgets. I think it's about holding a grudge, never forgiving, never forgetting. Again, common thing because of pride, perhaps, because maybe the person just doesn't deserve to be forgiven or forgotten what they did to you. Sometimes things leave permanent scars, and you just can't let that go, and you always have that reminder somehow out there. But there is, a little bit of like pop melodies within the song, so that's kind of good. That it shows again the biggest or how Hüsker Dü is no one trick pony. They can elaborate, they can add different elements to their songs and have fun with it, and still do it in a creative way and an effective way. And they can be, you're talking about a song that it's got this like melodicness to it, and you're talking about never forgiving somebody, which is sad, but I like a good old melody. The Biggest Line is the next song. It has kind of like this staccato intro. Again, you get these bursts of drums and guitar. And then it all kind of like blends together. More singy on the vocals, a catchy song for sure. Questioning, comforting lies that people tell themselves. We all kind of tell ourselves a little bit of lies that we have to say to ourselves to get us through. Maybe we made a bad choice and then we're like, oh, I got to say this to make myself feel a little better. Perhaps that could be the case. Kind of foreshadows an alternative rock sound a little bit. It's decent. What's Going On is the next song. A little longer, a little moodier. It's got this darkness to it, like a dark sound. Wondering about what's going on in your noggin. It has that hypnotic atmosphere, and the guitar sound a little bit, and you're trying to understand somebody's mental states, trying to understand what's going on. What's going on in your head. Hey, you gotta do that from time to time as well. A lot of these are like pretty straightforward. There's not like a ton of like mystery. Some of the songs have some mystery, like we said before, but I think for the most part it's pretty straightforward. Masochism, I don't know how you say that. World, a very hardcore song. Back to this format that you've seen throughout the record. Not a lot of breathing room here. seems to be talking about people who are addicted to suffering or creating some sort of misery. We all know those people. I would love to know like who are the influences of these songs and like the stories attached to them, because they got to be pretty personal and they got to be pretty crazy to write so many songs about it, or is impactful in the sense that it impacted their life where they felt they needed to put it into a song, throw it on a record and keep it consistent across the record. It would just be interesting to see that, but obviously I didn't have that opportunity. Next song is called Standing by the Sea. You get the sound of waves coming in, a little ocean atmosphere. It's relaxing. And then you get another great Greg Norton bass performance on it. And it's just such a good bass line. Like, bass players really often go ignored and don't get the credit that they deserve. And Greg Norton really knows how to put down a bass lick, and it's pretty friggin' awesome. Not a lot of lyrics in this song. And it's a little bit of a longer song, and it's powered more so by the instrumentals to create that vibe. It lets the music kind of do the storytelling a little bit more so than the lyrics, which is important too. You know, if you're able to pull that off and execute it effectively, that's great. Somewhere is the next song, and this is a cleaner, more polished song on the record, and almost seems like a little hopeful compared to the other songs that we've been talking about, with its maybe searching for something better, whether that's physically, emotionally, environmentally, looking for the brighter side of things, which I think you need that in a song, or in a smattering of songs where it's, well, I don't like this person, that person, this person, like, and all this kind of crazy shit's going on in my life. You need that little glimmer of hope. Otherwise, it can't all be doom and gloom, right? Maybe. One Step at a Time coming up next. Now, this intro has like, it sounds like a ballad, or it sounds like it's going to be a Journey song. It's 40 something seconds long. It's very like 80-esque in the instrumental bridge. It's just like an arena rock intro. It's kind of weird. I think it's like, you know, it's just giving you a yet another instrumental, and it's very different than the other one. And it's like, oh, all right, we're gonna dive into this third act where things go differently, perhaps. So then it goes into the song my bad. It goes in from One Step at a Time, and then goes into the song Pink Turns to Blue, which I believe is a metaphor of losing somebody. Pink, they're alive, their blood is flowing, they have some pigment to their skin. Blue meaning they died. Pretty melodic, pretty emotional. This is considered one of the best songs on the record. And I believe it's from somebody passing away from heroin, which it's never really explicitly said in the song, but it's something that unfortunately a lot of people have experience with. And even in 2026, it's pretty bad, and it's super sad. But yeah, very emotional song, very heartbreaking, and you know, that metaphor of pink turning to blue, something that was alive and thriving, and now it was blue, cold, and unfortunately dead. Not good at all. Newest Industry, this fast kind of song once again, talking about how society commercializes everything, even rebellion, suggests that people become products or trends rather than their unique self, which I think you get that with every single generation. You got the hippies, you got the hipsters, you got all that kind of stuff. I don't know what they're called these days, but people that follow the trends more so because that's just what everybody's doing. You're becoming the product. You're the ultimate consumer. You have influencers now that's all they are, is product pushing people. you don't even know, they probably don't even know who their true self is or really what they're all about. So crazy that a song from the 80s still really resonates in 2026, maybe even more so. I don't know, but it's not ideal. It's not great. Monday Will Never Be the Same. You have this kind of chillness to it. You bring in the piano, you bring in the keys. Similar to One Step at a Time, it sounds like another intro to a ballad of what's going to do. It kind of has like this Beatles vibe to it in the piano. The dreamlike theme, once again, is coming in here. All things are calm. Maybe it's the calm before the storm, if you will, because the next song, while it bleeds into it, so Monday Will Never Be the Same blends naturally into the next song called Whatever. I really think this song's more so about isolation, being resigned a little bit. There's some depression, suicidal ideology here. Again, another dark lyrical song. You know, you have a title called Whatever. It can be like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. Which is sad and impactful though on this record, and it's a bummer. They know how to really make you feel certain ways across this one. The Tooth Fairy and the Princess has this I guess you could call it an instrumental. It has spoken word in it. Has the repeatingness of the static theme. You get this scream at the end with a voice echoing, "Wake up, wake up, wake up." It's kind of like, again, this dream reality. You're dreaming, now you're coming into reality. Somebody's telling you to wake up. It's like a nightmare more than a song. It's so funky and weird, and it's like they do it again. Another instrumental type of vibe, and it's just it's so weird, and you got it so many times before, you wouldn't think it. You're like, there's no way they're going to do it again. And then they do it again. Well, they do it. And it's, I guess, it's effective. It's super experimental and super funky. Goes into the next song, Turn on the News. You get these clips of broadcasts going on, kind of cutting in, cutting out. Kind of starts pretty creepy. The band comes in then. And it just is like all the bad shit that you see on the news. Media saturation, violence and fear. Probably like a more political song than anything on this record. And again, another common theme that we see in 2026, where media is everywhere, news is everywhere. You don't know who to trust. You don't know what's factual. You think you're listening to the right stuff, but it turns out you're not. A lot of violence going on, a lot of people killing others, and just wild stuff. And it's all on the news. I really don't watch a lot of news. I don't pay attention. I try not to pay attention to a lot of the news because ignorance is bliss. And there's only so much that people can take. And that was the same thing, in the 80s too. A lot of these problems aren't going away, and history does repeat itself over and over again. You have unrest in the streets for people not wanting to get killed, people not wanting to get sent off into war, people not wanting to get sent off in the wars of their own home, the wars of their own societies, by their neighbors, by police, by people that are supposed to be helping each other. It's crazy, even by their own family members at times, and that's all you see in the news. And it's as a person who's in broadcasting for a little bit of a living, it's a tough kind of area to be in. Like, it's important to get word out and factual information out there, but at the same time, like, how many times can I report on some dude doing some horrific shit to a kid or to somebody, and before it just like, takes a toll on you. Goes into the final song on the album, nearly 14 minutes, and it's again an instrumental. It's this feedback you have this, it doesn't seem like it's very planned. It follows that, it's called dream or reoccurring dreams. So it follows dream reoccurring. Now it's recurring dreams. And it's just, it's bizarre. It's chaotic in a 13-minute instrumental. That's just kind of, so I think some people probably think, oh, that's brilliant. That's amazing. And that's the best thing I've ever heard. And some people are like, turn this noise off. How can I listen to it for 14 minutes long? Very unique. Pretty crazy. So it's that's Zen Arcade, kind of showing that punk albums can be more than just a collection of short songs. It can be instrumentals, it can be genre shifts, it can be sound shifts, it can be tonal shifts. It can be a lot of different things, blurring this line of hardcore, folk, psychedelic rock, 80s piano. It's just a super kind of crazy. And of course, Hüsker Dü influencing a ton of people in the world of punk rock. You can't deny that. So even if you don't love Zen Arcade, like I said, I'm not completely sold on it, but I'm not saying it's a horrible record. And I understand the impact. I see why it's important and why people really love this one. Could be an acquired taste, but you can't dismiss what Hüsker Dü has done for punk rock. You can experiment in your music. You can try something different. You don't need to stick to a cookie cutter formula. And I think they did a good job highlighting that, demonstrating that, and so much so that we're talking about it today. The record cover, when you look at it, it's like kind of 2-3 silhouettes of some people. One's wearing like a hat. One seems to be wearing a suit, and they're in a junkyard. Funky colors. Looks like they're walking in a puddle, kind of. It's interesting. Hüsker Dü, look at that. We did it, people. All the way from A to Z. We sprinkled some interviews in there. We got some more interviews coming out very soon. Well, we did it. I don't know what's going to be next. I'm going to be talking to a band called Pickle Juice. That'll be coming out. Trying to set up some other interviews. Do we start back at A, or do I try to just start talking to people about albums that I love, or have them pick out some albums? I'm not really sure. Got some time to think about it, but I just appreciate the support. And, been able to talk to some cool people, been able to discover some new albums that I really love, and kind of expand my world, which is great. So hit me up, follow me. You can find all my stuff at my link tree, linktr.ee/P is for punk. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Go listen to Zen Arcade.